Defining this without killing curiosity, the third day of planning. It was time to clarify what this actually was without removing the curiosity. That made the experiment compelling. Many past attempts had failed because explanations came too early or were overcomplicated, turning intrigue into boredom. This time, the goal was clarity without oversharing, structure without stripping away the sense of discovery. What I was about to test was deceptively simple and focused, consistent behavior layered over existing routines. Designed to reveal subtle internal shifts, the challenge lay in framing it so the audience could understand the method while still being drawn forward by the unknown outcome. People often misunderstand this kind of practice, assuming immediate visible results or dramatic life-altering changes. Common misconceptions had to be addressed gently. This was not a hack, not a shortcut, not a trend to chase. Those misinterpretations were the contrast they expected. Rapid payoff versus the slow, internal change that would actually occur. By showing the audience the difference between assumptions and reality, I created a cognitive frame that primes attention. The rule was simple: observe, apply, and reflect consistently for 7 days. Nothing more, nothing less. That simplicity is deceptive because it demands discipline and patience, qualities often overlooked by casual viewers. Setting boundaries for the 7-day test was crucial. Each day would have clearly defined actions, limited in scope yet meaningful in impact. The purpose was not to overhaul every aspect of life, but to create a controlled environment where subtle patterns could emerge. By defining what could and could not be done, I established expectations and limited distractions. This contrast between restriction and potential insight created tension. Limitations became the canvas for unexpected change. It was an exercise in restraint, forcing focus on small, measurable behaviors rather than superficial multitasking or scattered productivity attempts. Anticipation was also carefully constructed. Each day built upon the previous, but without revealing results too early. The story needed to show that small, consistent actions accumulate, yet the payoff remains just out of reach. By structuring the experiment this way, I created a sense of inevitability and suspense. Viewers could sense progress beneath the surface, even if nothing had visibly changed yet. That quiet build-up mirrors real change, where internal shifts precede external manifestation. Contrast framing reinforces this principle. The expected dramatic outcome is delayed to emphasize the power of consistent, patient action. Language and tone were deliberately restrained. I avoided flashy promises or exaggerated claims, opting instead for precise, grounded descriptions. This helped establish credibility and maintain a professional, authoritative voice. The audience could trust the process because the framing acknowledged reality. Change takes effort, requires observation, and may initially feel invisible. By making the method understandable but not fully rewarding upfront, I reinforced engagement and curiosity. Every explanation, every boundary, every rule was a signal that the experiment was methodical, reliable, and worth following through the full 7 days. Finally, by the end of this section, the audience understands both the method and the stakes. They know what to expect, yet they remain eager to witness the outcome. Misconceptions have been clarified, rules established, and curiosity preserved. The experiment now has structure, a deceptively simple approach applied consistently, boundaries set to focus attention, and anticipation maintained through delayed payoff. This careful balance of clarity, curiosity, and contrast ensures that viewers stay invested, primed for the internal shifts that will emerge in the next section, where the quiet middle of the experiment begins to reveal its subtle impact. Days 1 through 5 unfolded with subtlety. There were no dramatic shifts, no visible leaps of progress, just a quiet tension that seemed almost invisible to an outside observer. Yet beneath the surface, changes were occurring, thoughts sharpened, awareness heightened, and tiny behavioral adjustments began to accumulate. Each morning started with a familiar routine, yet small deviations revealed patterns I had overlooked before. It was in this quiet, almost tedious middle that the experiment revealed its true nature, emphasizing contrast, the boredom, and impatience that most people succumb to versus the internal growth that careful observation can produce. Boredom was the first adversary, repeating a controlled practice each day, while maintaining other daily responsibilities, created friction. Every fiber of the mind tempted shortcuts, promising relief from monotony. Yet the discipline of consistency prevented the easy escape. That tension, the push against routine, highlighted the contrast between expectation and reality. Unlike flashy, instant fix programs, this test required patience. The subtle emotional shifts, small victories over impulsive responses were the real markers of progress. What appeared to outsiders as stagnation was actually a crucible for discipline, resilience, and awareness, forming the foundation for meaningful results. Doubt also emerged as a constant companion. Despite following the method precisely, visible outcomes were minimal. The mind began to question the validity of the experiment, whispering that effort might be wasted. This skepticism, however, became a tool rather than an obstacle. By consciously acknowledging doubt, I reinforced observation and attention to small changes. The audience, framed as intelligent and discerning, experiences the same tension. They understand that the experiment tests subtlety, not spectacle. Contrast framing reinforces engagement here while most programs promise immediate rewards. True transformation often begins quietly and invisibly. The process emphasized restraint. Impulses that had once gone unchecked, skipping steps, seeking external validation, or measuring results prematurely were tempered through careful observation. Each action was purposeful, even if small. The quiet middle requires viewers to appreciate microshifts, an altered response to stress, a slight increase in focus, or a minute change in emotional balance. These internal developments are what set disciplined, long-term change apart from superficial gains. By documenting these subtle adjustments, the narrative builds credibility and realism, inviting the audience to recognize that transformation is incremental, often unnoticed until fully realized. Throughout days 1 to 5, patterns emerged that were otherwise invisible in daily life. Repetition revealed not only weaknesses, but also resilience. The contrast between early irritation and gradual acclimation demonstrated that effort does not always equate to immediate reward. but does cultivate underlying readiness for change. Every moment where impatience threatened to dominate became a test of intentionality. The audience witnesses both struggle and progress, learning through reflection that consistency often matters more than initial results. This internal evolution is the quiet payoff that precedes any visible outcome. By the end of the 5th day, a subtle but undeniable shift had taken place. Thoughts were clearer, focus steadier, and emotional responses slightly more regulated. The tension between expectation and reality had transformed into understanding. Change is incremental, often imperceptible, yet cumulative. This section demonstrates that the middle phase, where most abandon efforts, is the point of true preparation. The audience, having observed the contrast between impatience and subtle internal growth, is now primed to witness the payoff. They are aware that transformation is near, but its form remains uncertain, maintaining engagement and anticipation for the next stage of the experiment. The result, the reason, and the refrain be the 7th day. The experiment reached its critical moment. The subtle internal shifts of the previous days converged into a tangible experience that contrasted sharply with initial expectations. What had begun as quiet frustration now yielded insight, revealing the hidden patterns that had governed behavior all along. The transformation was not dramatic in a conventional sense. There were no overnight miracles, but its significance was unmistakable. This contrast between expectation and reality created the shock that the title promised. The results were both surprising and credible, grounded in observable change rather than hype.